Marty, are you okay? Marty!
Are you choking? I'm an emergency responder. May I help you?
Todd. Todd.
Do you need help?
Todd.
Kevin, are you all right?
Jimmy, come here quick!
Call emergency medical services immediately.
Susie, go call for help.
My neighbor just collapsed. Can you please send someone over?
My name is Eileen. I'm an emergency responder. May I help you?
Are you okay?
Medical emergencies and accidents happen every day.
Hey, Susie, can you call for help? Bring a first aid kit. Kevin, it's Steve.
At home, while commuting, at work, and during recreation. They're an unfortunate but inevitable part of life. Usually the first person to help is a layperson, friend, co-worker, or passerby. Someone like you. There are no guarantees, of course, but by applying some basic knowledge and skills as an emergency responder, you can do everything reasonably possible to produce a favorable outcome for the patient. You learn these basic skills in the Emergency First Response Primary Care (CPR) and Secondary Care First Aid courses. Emergency First Response Primary Care (CPR) prepares you to aid patients with life-threatening emergencies. You learn the same emergency care priorities medical professionals use. Emergency First Response Secondary Care First Aid builds upon what you learn in the Primary Care course. In that course, you learn to give aid for medical emergencies that aren't immediately life-threatening. The Emergency First Response courses follow the protocols of the Basic Life Support Working Group of ILCOR, the International Liaison Committee on Resuscitation. This group represents the world's major resuscitation organizations. Although Emergency First Response is an internationally based course, local variation in skill technique, first aid procedures, terminology, requirements, and course flow may exist. Your Emergency First Response instructor will guide you. In Emergency First Response Primary Care, CPR, you learn 8 essential skills that link together when you help someone in a life-threatening emergency. Scene assessment, barrier use, primary assessment, CPR, rescue breathing and chest compressions, conscious and unconscious choking adult, serious bleeding management, shock management, and spinal injury management. You may also learn other recommended primary care skills such as automated external defibrillator use and emergency oxygen use. In Emergency First Response Secondary Care, First Aid, you learn what to do when emergency medical services are either delayed or unavailable. Secondary care skills include injury assessment, illness assessment, bandaging, and splinting for dislocations and fractures. This video covers the skills for both courses. After watching the skills in the video, your instructor will demonstrate them for you in class. Then, you'll practice the skills. After you've learned to perform and sequence the skills, you'll get to practice them in simulated emergency situations. This teaches you to adapt your emergency responder skills to real emergencies.
Are you okay?
A medical emergency arises. As an emergency responder, you know that if you assist, you can save or restore a patient's life. You can reduce a patient's recovery time. And you can make the difference between a temporary or lifelong disability. But even knowing this, sometimes people hesitate to help. Even people with CPR and first aid training. They may feel anxiety or guilt about the situation. Sometimes they're afraid they'll do the wrong thing. In some societies, people are afraid they'll get sued if the situation doesn't work out right. And there's the fear of communicable diseases. As an emergency responder, realize that none of these concerns need prevent you from helping in a medical emergency. Let's look at why. First, let's look at the fear of infection. You may hesitate because you are afraid of being infected by the person you are assisting. This is a concern, but remember your training includes learning to use protective barriers to minimize the risk of disease transmission. By using barriers, you're highly unlikely to get any disease or infection from someone you help. Second, focus on helping, not perfection. You want to do the best you can, but it's unlikely a minor error will make much difference, much less hurt or kill a patient. Focusing on perfection tends to make people hesitate in a real emergency. Do not hesitate. Help. Remember, adequate care provided is better than perfect care withheld. Third, learn to trust your training. During the scenarios, you'll find that what you think you forgot comes back when you provide aid. At first, things feel awkward. Then suddenly you've got it, like getting back on a bicycle after not riding one for years. Remember this feeling. You can trust it in a real emergency. Fourth, be decisive and act. Usually there's more than one right way to handle a situation. Circumstances don't always provide clear direction. Start helping immediately. To help you be decisive and act, Emergency First Response has developed an easy-to-use prompt to remind you of the important steps needed to assist someone in need. The Emergency Care at a Glance Decision Guide provides you with comprehensive primary and secondary care directions. This is a must-have addition to your first aid kit at home and on the road. Fifth, you may be concerned about your responsibility when helping another in need. You may hesitate because you're afraid of being sued. In general, the fear of being sued should not stop you from providing emergency care. Many countries have Good Samaritan laws which simply say that as a layperson helping another, you cannot be successfully sued if ultimately things don't work out well for the patient. Your training in this course will show you how to provide help within the protection of these laws. Good Samaritan laws will generally protect you if you provide care within the scope of your training as an emergency responder. Ask for permission to help. Act in good faith. Are not reckless or negligent. Act as a reasonably prudent person would. And don't abandon the patient once you begin care. The exception is if you must do so to protect yourself from imminent danger. Finally, don't worry about making a person worse. The most serious medical emergency is when a patient isn't breathing and has no heartbeat. Sometimes people hesitate to help such a patient, fearing they'd make him worse. As an emergency responder, realize you cannot make such a person worse.
Hey, Kev. Susie, go call for help.
Okay.
Hey, Kevin, are you all right? Kev, it's Steve. Can you hear me?
A person who isn't breathing and has no heartbeat is already in the worst state of health. Again, remember you cannot make the person worse, but you may be able to help this person. You don't need to fear providing rescue breaths and chest compressions. You can trust your training. Take a moment to relax, think of your training, then step forward and help. CPR, Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation, helps to oxygenate the body when the heart isn't beating. You do this because if CPR begins soon enough and if emergency care arrives quickly, then it may be possible to restart the patient's heart. CPR won't usually restart the patient's heart. Instead, it extends the period during which it may be possible to restart the heart.
Nice move.
Take it.
Take that shot.
Take it.
Todd. 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 Todd, it's Richard.
Realize that CPR doesn't guarantee that the patient's heart will restart. In fact, most of the time, even with CPR, it doesn't restart. This means that you can never know whether providing CPR or any other aid that's called for would have made a difference unless you step forward and provide help. If you provide CPR and the patient's heart doesn't restart when medical care arrives, realize that you did everything humanly possible. But if you could have provided CPR and didn't, you may spend the rest of your life wondering whether it would have made a difference. Don't let that happen. Trust your training and help. Remember, adequate care provided is better than perfect care withheld. While you are taking this course, don't be intimidated. Naturally, you'll make mistakes during the course. It's a normal part of learning. So if you make one, just adjust and try again. If you already knew what to do, you wouldn't be taking a course. You'll have plenty of time to practice, build your confidence, and be ready to help someone in an emergency. Also, have fun. That may sound odd considering the seriousness of what you're learning, but you'll learn more and learn faster when you enjoy the learning process. Keep it light. Your ability to use a skill effectively weakens when you don't use it for a while. But once you've learned it, it comes back much easier than learning it the first time. The more recently you practice the skill, the easier it comes back. The same is true for your emergency first response skills. Hopefully you won't need them often in real emergencies, so you want to practice to keep them fresh. Here's how. First, watch this video from time to time so you remember the skill steps and the information that relates to using them. Second, run through practice emergencies with other emergency responders in your family or among your friends. Try to get some CPR practice. If you don't have a CPR mannequin, use a stuffed sack that's the right size or even a pillow, but never practice CPR chest compressions on a person. Doing so can interfere with the person's normal heartbeat. Finally, refresh your skills with an instructor in the Emergency First Response Primary Care (CPR) and Secondary Care First Aid refresher at least every 2 years, but refresh more often if you can. When you complete the update, you receive a current Emergency First Response completion card. When you recognize a potentially life-threatening emergency, you help with the first 3 links in the chain of survival. Link 1 is early recognition and call for help. Link 2 represents early CPR. The third link is early defibrillation. The fourth link, early professional care and follow-up, is for professional health care providers. In a life-threatening emergency, early professional care is very important. The sooner emergency medical professionals arrive, the better the outlook for the patient. The emergency responder does not replace professional emergency medical care. In the chain of survival, your role as the emergency responder is to summon emergency medical aid and to assist the patient until it arrives. Activating EMS is so important that in most circumstances, if you're alone and there's no one else to activate the EMS for you, you call first, then assist the patient.
You might have a couple injured passengers.
An exception to the call first rule is if the patient is a child or an adult that has experienced submersion in water or other incident that is likely to be a respiratory-related event. In these cases, you provide CPR for about 2 minutes, then call emergency medical services. An exception to the call first rule is if the patient is a child or an adult that has experienced submersion in water or other incident that is likely to be a respiratory-related event. In these cases, you provide CPR for about 1 minute, then call emergency medical services.
13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Take this arm and grab your other hand.
With EMS on the way, the care you provide increases the chance that advanced care will help the patient when it arrives. Your training in this course is based on handling emergencies where you have an emergency medical system. If you need to provide emergency aid in areas away from EMS support, you should continue your education with more advanced first aid training.
Check your abdomen now.
Providing emergency care can be very stressful. After the incident and after the emergency medical professionals take over, it's time to take care of yourself. You may wish to talk about the event to a friend or family member. You may find the situation upsetting, especially if things didn't work out well for the patient.
Still, I feel like I let him down. I mean, what about his family? I feel like I let them down too.
Talk to someone if it helps, including a healthcare professional if necessary. But remember that as an emergency responder, your training only gives those you help the best chances possible, not promises nor guarantees of medical miracles. No matter how it works out for the patient, feel good about the fact that you reached out to help another.
All right. Maybe you're right. Maybe doing something is better.
Before helping someone, it's important to ask for permission to help. You do this with the responder statement.
Okay, I'm an emergency responder. May I help you?
Yes, please.
You simply say, "Hello, my name is," your name. "I'm an emergency responder. May I help you?" It's important to get the patient's agreement if he is alert and responsive. If a patient is unresponsive, give the responder statement anyway.
I'm an emergency responder. May I help you?
If the patient can't answer, most laws assume implied consent. This means the law recognizes that in a serious situation, the patient would almost certainly want help. Laws vary from one region to the next, so check those that apply to you. If an adult refuses your help, don't force it on her. Instead, talk to the person, stressing the need for care and monitor her condition without providing actual aid. Depending on the situation, however, you could activate EMS at this time. Have you ever wondered how medical professionals know what to treat first when they help someone? They monitor the ABCDs of the patient's lifeline, which provide the sequence for helping the patient. The ABCD sequence of emergency care will help you remember what to do. You'll practice monitoring the lifeline and the ABCDs as you learn emergency first response skills.
May I help you? Steve, can you hear me?
A stands for assess the scene. Alert emergency medical service. Apply personal barriers. And assure the airway is open so the patient can breathe. B stands for breathing. With the airway open, you check that the patient is breathing, and if needed, begin rescue breaths. C stands for circulation and chest compressions, prompting you to begin chest compressions if a patient has stopped breathing. The chest compressions artificially circulate blood to vital organs. D is for defibrillation, the process that attempts to restart the heart. You'll learn more about defibrillation a bit later. S reminds you to apply serious bleeding management, shock management, and spinal injury management. When you come across a possible medical emergency, what's the first thing you do? It may surprise you that the first thing you do is think about yourself. You need to protect yourself. This is for the sake of the person needing help as well as for yours. After all, if you get hurt, you can't help. Assessing a scene, one of the A's in the lifeline, is the process of looking for and avoiding any dangers at the scene of a medical emergency. It's the first thing you do and the first skill you'll practice. Scene assessment takes 3 steps. 1. Stop. 2. Think. And then 3. Act. Stop and assess the scene for hazards. What hurt the person? Can it hurt you? Watch out for traffic, especially if helping around an auto accident. Be wary of the unseen, like fumes, electricity sources, chemicals, or radiation. Beware of spreading fire, not just because it burns, but because smoke inhalation can injure, incapacitate, and even kill. After you're sure the scene is safe, take a moment to think about what to do next. After surveying the scene quickly, ask yourself, what emergency care might be needed? If there's more than one patient, who appears to need help the most urgently? What can you reasonably expect to do? How do you activate the emergency medical service where you are? Now act. In a readily apparent serious emergency, first activate the local emergency medical service, either yourself or by having an able bystander do so. This is the cool first approach to emergency care.
Okay, I'm going to go to him now.
Now act. In a readily apparent serious emergency, first check the patient's breathing. If no breathing is detected, activate the local emergency medical service, either yourself or by having an able bystander do so. This is the cool first approach to emergency care.
Okay, I'm going to go to him now. As soon as possible. I'm at Reef Point.
If you make the call, it's best to stay on the line until you hear the emergency operator hang up. That way, you won't accidentally hang up before the operator gets all the necessary information. In some circumstances, the need for medical care may be in question, so you would activate the emergency medical service after or during your primary assessment based on what you find. As you help, follow the emergency first response skill sequence, but scene assessment and taking care of yourself never stops. Ensure your safety so you can help others in need. Earlier, you learned that some people fear infection and therefore hesitate to help others in medical emergencies. The diseases of most concern are those transmitted through blood and other body fluids. These are hepatitis B and C and the human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV. As an emergency responder, you can greatly reduce infection risk by applying barriers, another one of the A's in the lifeline. Barriers include gloves, ventilation masks or shields, face shields, and eye shields. You can minimize the risk of infection by always placing a barrier between you and any body fluid of another person. Like scene assessment, barrier use is a skill that usually comes before you start helping the patient. Remember, to start with skill 1, scene assessment. Stop, think, and act. First, you'll put on gloves. Put the glove on carefully to avoid tearing. Remove gloves so that you don't spray or spread body fluids. Carefully loosen the first glove at the wrist and roll it inside out into a ball. Hold it in your gloved hand, then roll off the remaining glove by lifting at the wrist from inside, like this. Use caution not to tear the gloves or snap them, which can spray body fluids. Place the gloves in a biohazard bag for disposal according to local guidelines. Your instructor will show you how to use one or more of the different ventilation barriers available. They all trap or isolate you from moisture or fluids from the patient's breath and mouth, allowing you to provide rescue breathing and CPR with minimal infection risk. Barriers take up little room, so it's easy to keep a set of gloves and ventilation barriers handy. Try to keep one or more sets so they're nearby at all times, but they're not required to provide CPR. The risk of infection is minimal and may be even lower if you're helping someone who has a medical history you know, like a family member. This is your decision, but you may decide you don't need to withhold aid just because you don't have a barrier available. You've assessed the scene, activated the local emergency medical service, and applied your barriers. Now you're ready to begin primary assessment. You've assessed the scene and applied your barriers. Now you're ready to begin primary assessment. Primary means first and most important. Primary assessment is your first and most important evaluation of the patient. During the assessment, you evaluate the patient for life-threatening conditions that need immediate attention, and you determine the priorities you need to follow. No matter what the patient's situation when you arrive, you begin with primary assessment, following the ABCDs of the patient's lifeline. Throughout the incident, you continually monitor the lifeline, ready to provide assistance based on what it tells you. Watch this emergency scenario, noting how the ABCDs guide the rescuer. After the scenario, we'll review how the rescuer applied each step.
Marty, are you okay? Marty, it's Tina. I'm an emergency responder. May I help you? Marty! Marty! Hello, my name is Tina. I'm at 5746 Michael Street. Yeah, my neighbor just collapsed. Can you please send someone over? Thank you.
The Lifeline ABCDs answer all questions about what conditions to treat first. For instance, suppose a patient has serious bleeding and doesn't appear to be breathing. What do you do first? First, you go to A and assess the scene. Alert EMS. Apply personal barriers and open the airway. Then you go to B and check for breathing. You find the patient isn't breathing, so you breathe for him and give 2 rescue breaths. At step C for circulation, you immediately begin chest compressions. Rescue breaths and chest compressions, CPR, takes priority over serious bleeding. The Lifeline ABCDs lead you correctly to deal with the absent heartbeat before you deal with serious bleeding. Watch this emergency scenario, noting how the ABCDs guide the rescuer. After the scenario, we'll review how the rescuer applied each step.